This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source. Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We offer a free book on mesothelioma. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
While 2020 may go down in history as a year some people would like to forget. Some. Earlier this month, CNN Heroes revealed the most inspiring moment our viewers chose this year. Protester Patrick Hutchinson carrying a white counter-protester to safety at a Black Lives Matter protest in London.
And Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, also made a surprise appearance to honor everyday heroes who stepped up to ensure the basic needs of communities were met during the coronavirus pandemic.
They made sure that those around them did not have to suffer in isolation. They nourished their neighbors in more ways than one. And they showed us, all of us, that even in the darkest times, when we come together, we have the power to remind someone else that there is hope and that we will be okay.
She's the best. She's the best. Happy Christmas is what the Brits say, but I'm going to say Merry Christmas to Meghan Markle.
Just to Meghan.
Because she's American. Merry Christmas, Meghan Markle.
Okay. Anderson Cooper looks back at the frontline heroes who have carried us these past long months.
Before, we never noticed the shift change. We didn't see the nurses, the doctors, and hospital workers head home. We didn't notice the first responders leaving their stations after a long day. But now we do. At 7 p.m. in New York, at 8 p.m. in Los Angeles, then France, then Italy, and all around the world, with deafening applause and humble salutes, we stop to say thank you. From sidewalks, windows and balconies, masked and alone in homes, people join together to give thanks to those incredible heroes who spent their days tending to the sick, helping families say goodbye, and holding back their own pain to keep saving countless lives.
That's so nice.
I don't think there's any words for that, but to everybody, thank you.
You can watch this year's CNN Heroes and All-Star Tribute on demand on CNN Go and on HBO Max.
Okay, and speaking of heroes, we'll hear from two in our next hour. Critical care nurses from the front lines share their stories on this Christmas when New Day continues.
This is a special edition of New Day with Alisyn Camerota and John Berman.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special holiday edition of New Day. Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm John Berman, alongside Alisyn Camerota.
Merry Christmas.
So we're celebrating.
Yes.
A lot.
Why not?
But it's different, right? Because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And Dr. Sanjay Gupta will join us to talk about what the pandemic has taught us about science, leadership, and heroism in America.
And speaking of heroes, two critical care nurses will join us in just a few minutes to share what they're seeing on the front lines of this pandemic.
And yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. The real story behind what might be the most famous newspaper editorial ever written.
All that and more ahead, but first, let's get a check of your headlines from the news desk.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alison Kosik. Breaking overnight, the CDC announcing it will require all passengers from the United Kingdom to prove they've tested negative for coronavirus before they can fly to the United States. The order is a response to the new COVID variant that appears to have originated in the UK. Let's go live now to London and bring in CNN's Salma Abdulaziz. Salma, so what's the reaction there about this new requirement?
Well, Alison, of course, there is often flights between the UK and the United States, but the United States is kind of late to the party here. There's over 40 countries that have already put restrictions into place, and it's important to remember that Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced these new rules, or rather this new variant, last weekend. So you are sort of looking at a week in time in which potentially there could have been many flights that have already entered the United States, and that variant could already be in the United States. Now, just to tell you about the variant, on last Saturday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in a surprise announcement, came out and said there's a new variant here in London and in the surrounding regions. It's up to 70% more transmissible. That's why people are worried about it. It is not more deadly or immune to the vaccine, as far as people understand right now, although there are early indications that it might be more difficult to vaccinate against. So what's the plan? The plan is you have to get a negative coronavirus test up to 72 hours before you board that flight to the United States. Otherwise, airliners will turn you around. The responsibility is on the airliners to do that. But I want to explain to you that it's not easy to get a coronavirus test here. Yes, mass testing is being rolled out across this country. But for example, here in London, where there is no mass testing, I would have to do one of two things. I'd either have to have symptoms and try to book a test through the National Health Service here, or I'd have to go to a private clinic and pay $200. All of this, of course, will make it much more difficult for trade, business, commerce, lives, families to flow between the UK and the US. Alison?
Okay, CNN, Selma Abdelaziz, thanks very much. The stimulus relief bill that President Trump has so far refused to sign has been flown to Trump's Mar-a-Lago Golf Club in Florida, where the president is spending the holiday. The question is, what will he do with it? More than 12 million laid-off Americans could lose their jobless benefits as early as tomorrow. Joining us now, Eugene Daniels. He's the national political reporter for Politico, and he joins us live. Thanks so much for joining us on Christmas. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for having me.
So Trump has made it clear he's, good leaving chaos in his dust. Talk with me about the impact on Americans if this bill doesn't get moving.
Exactly. I mean, just like you said, there are millions of Americans who have benefits that were tied to the CARES Act that are going to expire in just next week. They're going to lose. They're not going to be able to pay for rent. They're not going to be able to pay for their mortgages. All of those kinds of things that we've been talking about for. It's been months since Congress has actually passed any huge kind of stimulus package. And the $600 that was already in the package that President Trump hasn't really said he's going to veto, but is signaling that he said he doesn't like and signaling that he will veto. It seemed that $600 has been hit by Democrats and Republicans as not too much. Any person you talk to out in the world says it's not enough. Not enough. And that's the president's biggest gripe, it seems, right? Like, it's not something that we haven't heard. The $600 has been out there for a long time. So him swooping in now and kind of saying, even as people were hoping for that $600 stimulus check is concerning for a lot of people across the country.
So you say you're getting indications that he'll veto it, but I want to hear what your prediction is. What do you think President Trump will do with the bill? It was literally flown to his doorstep. Will he sign it? Will he veto it? Will he let it sit and let it die before the new congressional session starts on January 3rd?
Exactly right. He doesn't have to veto it, right? If they wanted him to be able to basically for them to run out the clock on him and it just become law without him signing it, they would have had to send it to him before Wednesday. And that's not what happened. Obviously, as you said, it's being sent there now. It's completely unclear what the president's going to do. You talk to his allies on the Hill and other Republicans, they are just as confused as anyone else. And he hasn't given any indication to Americans or to his allies what he's going to do. The stakes are really high for mostly Republicans at this point, because Democrats have already said, we want to give $2,000 too. We want to give as much as possible. And House Republicans stopped that from having unanimous consent in the House. And so right now, Democrats are agreeing with the president, which is something that hasn't happened in a long time. And Republicans could be seen as the team that's involved here that doesn't want to give more money to Americans.
What do you think are the motivations of the president in doing this?
President Trump, he's on his way out. He knows that he said, the next administration, though he did kind of give a wink and a nod to his attempts to overturn the election by saying, maybe that'll be my administration. It won't be. He'll be leaving on January 20th. I think President Trump is hoping that on his way out, he's seen as the what he promised to be, which is the man fighting for the unforgotten men and women around this country. But the problem is the president could have done this months ago. He was completely uninvolved personally with this. The Treasury Secretary was involved, so the White House knew exactly what was being argued for weeks, especially the part that is his biggest gripe, right, that amount of money. It seems like President Trump wants to, as he leaves, we already know he's not going to go away as many presidents do after they finish their term. He's probably going to be out there, and what he wants to do is continue to be seen as the person who is the only person, whether Democrat or Republican, that's fighting for you, fighting for the everyday American in this country. And I think he's banking on either saving the day with everyone, getting on board with what he said he wants, or by vetoing and saying it wasn't enough, or pocket vetoing it.
Very quickly, I want to hear your prediction about what you think is going to happen on leading up to the inauguration. Do you think the president's going to, play out any shenanigans as President-elect Biden is getting inaugurated?
I would say yes. There are conversations already happening with behind the scenes with President Trump's team, talking about what he could do, right? Should he have his own event on Inauguration Day where he's going to announce that he's going to run again in 2024? Will he go to the inauguration? It seems unlikely at this point, but something that benefits President Trump, if he does decide to go to the inauguration, is that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and he would unlikely be able to, be advised to get into a limousine with President-elect Joe Biden and drive over to the Capitol from the White House, as has been the tradition. And so President Trump has a lot of power here in deciding that, I don't want to go. And it's hard to see President Trump going to this, because that, implicitly is a stamp of approval on the next presidency, which is what he's been trying to not do for weeks now.
Eugene Daniels with Politico. Great talking with you today. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me.
You got it. The coronavirus pandemic has taught us so much about science and about leadership. Dr. Sanjay Gupta joins us with a look at what he's learned next.
I feel better already.
2021. You ready for this?
God. New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen.
I have a very good feeling about this one.
Hey.
I'm John Harwood at the White House, and this is CNN.
So the coronavirus pandemic has obviously affected so many lives, but it's also brought out the best in science and put leadership to the test. Speaking of the best in science and leadership, joining us now, CNN Chief Medical Correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, Merry Christmas to you. It's so great to see you this morning. Look, the vaccine rollout has finally been able to provide some protection to frontline workers, the healthcare workers. How incredible of a feat is this? What has it been like to watch this for you?
It's been a pretty remarkable year. I think, scientifically, we see these shots going into arms, and it looks like a fairly routine thing. I mean, most of us have received shots at some point in our life, but the story behind the positive that came out of all this.
That's so great, Sanjay. What a great note to end on, and what a great upshot of this really hard year.
I think a lot of people have been inspired.
Hey, next year, I hope I can be with you guys in person, by the way. It looks really, really nice and cozy up there.
It's really toasty warm. I hope you can see our fire that we built in the studio. Sanjay, we can't wait for that. We can't wait to be reunited with you in person.
That's right. Well, I'll go out. You're buying. All right, Sanjay. We really appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you.
Good too.
All right. It has been quite an incredible year, a moment of reckoning in some ways for this country on race. We'll look back on what we learned and what we can look forward to. Abby Phillip and Van Jones joins us next.
Bush Allman Brothers helped put me in the White House when I didn't have any money.
We now had a president that started to see the world the way we saw it.
Jimmy Carter, rock and roll president, Sunday, January 3rd at 9 on CNN.
First Ladies, back-to-back episodes, tomorrow starting at 9 on CNN.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome back to a special Christmas edition of New Day.
Merry Christmas
to you. Well, I can't wait to open all our gifts after this. We have a lot to get to in this half hour, including a conversation about America's racial reckoning. Will 2020 be a lasting turning point in our nation's history?
And we have a CNN reality check on Santa Claus, a true story of what happened when a little girl dared to question whether he's real. But first, let's get a check of your headlines at the news desk.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alison Kosik, breaking overnight.
Having your wisdom with us this year has been a true gift. Thanks for helping us all get through this very tough year.
Thank you, guys. Have a great Christmas.
You too. So nurses have been the caring hands on the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. Earlier this year, we spoke to 2 critical care nurses. Now the pandemic is surging across the entire country, so we want to check in with them again. That's next.
I feel better already.
2021. You ready for this?
God. New Year's Eve Live with Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen.
I have a very good feeling about this one.
That's delicious. You have to taste that.
I'm Jim Acosta at the White House. This is CNN.
It's been a grueling year for frontline healthcare workers in the fight against coronavirus. This Christmas, we're sending our thanks and gratitude to each and every one of them. And we want to check in on a few critical care nurses whom we spoke with last April as the virus was raging here in New York. We want to see how they've done since then. Joining us now are Liz O'Rourke and Mary Halliday. They are the nurses in the Surgical Intensive Care Unit at North Shore University Hospital in New York. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us on this Christmas. It's great to see you again. And Mary, we were so touched by your experience again. Thank you so much for all you do. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Christmas.
Just think of the year, the stamina it's taken, and the idea that, you didn't know where the finish line was. We're not there yet, by the way. It's closer. You can sort of see the finish line or feel that it exists for the first time, but to work this long without knowing whether there'd be one.
And to get sick. Yeah. I mean, to be doing all of that every day and to be risking your own health and to be getting sick, it's just what they've done has been remarkable.
Heroes.
Yes.
So Christmas is, of course, a magical time, but did you know it also produced one of the most important and heartwarming reality checks of all time?
I don't often think of heartwarming and reality check in the same sentence.
If we don't say so ourselves.
They're together.
They're
together this time.
John Avalon here to tell us.
Look, Santa Claus has been working overtime in a year unlike any other. While for weeks, the good folks at the post office have been sending Christmas lists for millions of kids to the North Pole. And with NORAD's Santa Tracker in full effect, we can now scientifically see where the reindeer-driven sleigh is around the world at any given moment. But, of course, the magic of Christmas can't be captured with a tracker. It exists beyond time and space. And one of the most enduring expressions of the Christmas spirit came when a young girl named Virginia O'Hanlon wrote her local newspaper, the New York Sun, asking for a reality check of sorts about Santa way back in 1897. Here's what she wrote. Dear editor, I am 8 years old. See it or not, by an invisible filament, and it's from that light that the best things in life are illuminated. It's something we don't talk about enough as adults, the power of kindness and consideration, especially between generations. But the communion between Virginia O'Hanlon and Francis Pharcellus Church more than 120 years ago endures in our hearts because it reminds us that our spirits all grow stronger when we take the risk of listening to the better angels of our nature. So Merry Christmas, and that's your reality check.
Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. That is the ultimate reality check.
It is.
For the ages. Wonderful, John. Lovely. Merry Christmas to you and your entire family. So, last year you met my champions for change, the Young at Heart Chorus, an inspiring group of seniors who perform rock hits for audiences across the country. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic forced the group to halt all in-person rehearsals and performances, but they have not let it stop the music. Watch this.
Don't give up when you get older. Don't be afraid of getting old, because you have.
I mean, music is medicine. Music is healing. That was really beautiful.
It is such a wonderful thing that they found a way to come together and keep on practicing, to keep on performing. Visit theyoungatheartchorus.com to watch the group's 2020 virtual Christmas special. I guarantee you it will make you smile.
Okay, so staying healthy and safe is the most important thing we can all do for each other on this Christmas day. Much more of this special Christmas edition of New Day next.